Hey, how you doing? Welcome back. It's my pleasure to start a new course. This one's a short one, airframe inspections. So I'll probably go a little quicker on this one. All right. Here's a quick little reference to all the parts that we refer to all the time. You'll hear us say Part 21 or Part 91, Part 43. Um, Aviation School 147, your repair facility 145. 135 operations are the charter or on demand, and 121 are the big guys. 125 also. I don't work with those as much, although my students do. So um, let's see, we're looking at mostly Part 91. These are the general operating and flight rules, and you're going to see most of your requirements are going to be under Part 91. Subpart E deals with and the approved type of inspection programs. So I guess we're going to take a little closer look at Part 91. All right, here's Part 91. If you did go to Subpart E of Part 91, which is basically the 400s, um, you're going to see some 409 specifically says inspections. 411 looks like it's going to be inspections for altimeters. 413 inspections for your transponders. 415 changes to the inspection programs. 417 what records to keep, and a few other requirements. So the primary inspection requirements are in 409. It's been a while since I put together this presentation, so yeah, here's 409. So this is specifically what 91.409 provides for. And you're going to see the word 100 one, two, three, four times in this paragraph. Um, Basically, um, no person may operate an aircraft that carries another person for hire or give flight instruction in an aircraft um, unless that person provides in the last 100 hours of time in service, the aircraft has received its annual, or if you're flying quite frequently, it's just one every 100 hours, and has been approved for return to service in accordance with Part 43. So this is all what 91.409 calls for. There's some specifics, and the FAA loves quizzing people on this. So let's see what the next part is. The 100-hour limitation may be exceeded by not more than 10 hours while en route to reach a place where the inspection can be done. And then if you do use that excess time, um, that will be included in computing the next 100 hours of time in service. And we're going to see some questions that basically, say if you get an inspection done at hour 103, how many hours do you have to wait for the next inspection? Well, I guess the quick answer would be 97. All right. The question is, where would you find the operating conditions that make a 100-hour inspection mandatory? And you may be wondering why I went into so much legal research. I switched to lawyer mode. It was mostly because I saw this question coming up. So I thought I'd expose you to the various parts and then the subparts. And if you recall, the, the, the section that contain the operating requirements for a 100-hour inspection or the operating conditions which trigger the requirement of a 100-hour inspection. Those were in Part 91, specifically 91.409. Not in 43, although there was a reference to 43 in Part 91, and certainly not in the AC. That's mostly to assist you with maintenance and alterations that, because 2A is alterations, that would come up where you may not have other materials to go by. And it's turned out to be a nice study aid for AMT students. So the answer is going to be A. Yeah, 409, oh, B. I didn't see the B part in there. Oh yeah, it is B. All right. Oral question. Where do you find the regulation that specifies the operating conditions that make 100-hour inspections mandatory? What's that? 14 CFR 409. I mean 91.409B. They're not going to require an answer like that. This isn't the bar exam. Maybe they wouldn't mind it. Part 41's good enough. If you want to add FAR, Federal Aviation Regulations, go for it. What determines whether or not an aircraft must be given a 100-hour inspection? What appeared like if you're going to carry a person for hire or be engaged in flight training operations. And I don't recall seeing any other requirements there. Aircrafts that carry persons for hire and aircraft that are used for flight instruction for hire must be given 100-hour inspections. All right. Let me move my microphone over here. I'm not going to start over, but it is kind of shoved to the other side. How come my audio is bad? Oops. Okay. Did it come back on? I might have to watch that. I'll review this, but it's going to be a fairly long presentation, so it's one I do not intend to redo. I haven't had OBS on for a while, but I'm not sure where my audio is. All right, I'm going to continue on. More on 100-hour inspections. I believe most of this presentation is. If the aircraft is operated for compensation or hire, all right. Or it may be maintained under an FAA-approved alternative inspection program, such as a progressive inspection program, or maybe even an AAIP. What type of operations require that? Aircraft operating under Part 91 must undergo 100-hour inspections. It's kind of the same answer. Operated for hire, flight school operations must undergo 100-hour inspections, or perhaps a progressive inspection schedule. Okay, same answer. It looks like the same question. An aircraft under a progressive inspection program is operated for compensation or hire. Does it need a 100-hour inspection? Well, we just saw that was an or type option. You either do the 100-hour inspection or you get approved for a progressive inspection program. So no, the $100 inspection takes the place, or I mean the progressive inspection takes the place of the $100 inspection and the annual inspection. Who may do this? What certificate do you need is required to conduct a $100 inspection? The answer is a certificated A&P technician may conduct the $100 inspection and sign to approve the aircraft for return to service. An A&P technician who inspected the aircraft must make the proper entries in the aircraft's maintenance records and approve the aircraft for return to service before the $100 inspection is considered complete. Question: for an individual, not a repair station, to conduct a complete $100 inspection on an aircraft and approve it for return to service requires a mechanic certificate with, do you just need an airframe? No, that makes me look at the question again. It does say a $100 inspection on an aircraft. When they use the aircraft, that's a little broader than on an airframe. So if you were going to go with A, I would look for the airframe word in the top part. Since they say aircraft, that could include the engine and or the propeller. Turn on some lights. B, an airframe and power plant ratings. Or C, airframe and power plant ratings with an inspection authorization. B would be the best answer, airframe and power plant. And I believe it did just say an A&P mechanic may do a $100 inspection. So A and P, not just A. And not just P. So B is correct answer. A and P may conduct the $100 inspection and approve it for return to service. A certificated airframe and power plant mechanic may sign off and approve the return to service following what type of inspection? That would be the $100 inspection. In order for an individual person to conduct a $100 inspection and approve the return to service, that person must have what type of certificate or certificates? Well, that would be the airframe and power plant certificates. I guess the more proper way is to refer to your mechanic certificate, which it's the same ID card, but on the back it'll have your ratings, and airframe and power plant are the two ratings. The inspection entry, there was a section in 91 that also had to do with maintenance records. So we could take a look at that, but the actual words of the maintenance record for a $100 inspection or any other inspection under Part 91 and 125 and 135, certain parts of 135 anyway. An entry must be made in the maintenance records. The date of the inspection and the aircraft total time in service shall be contained in the entry. I'm not sure. I guess it is. Okay, the aircraft total time in service. You don't need that for maintenance records. I mean, for maintenance entries. I changed the oil on the aircraft. You don't have to put down exactly what time it was. Your employer may require it, and that specific requirement might be a bad example, but I highlighted, so just read the highlighted part. After any inspection, in accordance with Part 91, an entry in the maintenance record as the date and aircraft total time in service. Okay, well, based on how I've been doing things, I'll bet a question's going to pop up. Sure enough, for aircraft operated under Part 91, when is aircraft total time required to be recorded in aircraft maintenance records? And I'm glad I talked about it a little bit, because A specifically says after completing maintenance, which you do not need total time in service. B, after satisfactory completing inspections? Yes. Or C, after satisfactory completing airframe component or propeller maintenance? No, again, you do not need time when you do the maintenance, just for the inspections. If you look at the maintenance requirement, it doesn't have the highlighted part in the last, so I'm going to say this one's B. All right, these aren't that difficult of questions. You can see they keep a common theme. Why do you need a 100-hour inspection? Maybe even know what section, or at least what FAR part it's required under. Who may do the inspection? What do you do before the inspection is considered complete? Make the entry. A variety of, or a variation of the question. For aircraft operated under Part 91, what difference is there, if any, between the record entry requirements for maintenance and the record entry requirements for inspections? And that is the total time in service. So which one is that? Total time is to be included B, in the maintenance? No. C, in the inspection entry. So C. You can tell they're running out of questions to ask you on this if they're harping on this, which is relatively minor. But you can almost expect it in your O&P questions afterwards. Because there's not that many oral questions that could come up. Well, we already saw a couple, and that's the O in the O&P exam. All right, so what was that? That was Part A. All right. 4311 continues on. Also include your signature, your certificate, and number. That's number 3. The signature, certificate, number, type of certificate like A and P. Return to service follows the 4th clause, except for progressive inspections. The aircraft, if the aircraft is found to be airworthy, give this type of statement or similarly worded statement. I certify that this aircraft has been inspected in accordance with 100-hour inspection and was determined to be in airworthy condition. If it's not returned to service, go ahead and look at number 5. I certify that this aircraft has been inspected in accordance with 100-hour inspection, and a list of discrepancies and unairworthy items dated today's date has been provided for the aircraft owner or operator. Think they can come up with a question or two on these 3 provisions? Probably one of each. Okay, oral question. Where would you locate the required items that must be recorded in the aircraft maintenance records following completion of a 100-hour inspection? We've been reading in Part 43. Specifically, it's 43.11. What must the mechanic furnish to the owner or operator of an aircraft if the aircraft he is giving a 100-hour inspection to prove to be unairworthy? Now, some of these oral questions I've rewritten to correct the grammar a little bit. Um, or maybe the pronouns. Okay, and that's enough to distract me from what the question is asking. Um, Furnish the owner, that's going to be the listed discrepancy uh, and other of the otherwise unairworthy items. Assigned and dated, list of all the discrepancies that keep the aircraft from being airworthy. Where can you find the recommended statement to use for recording the approval or disapproval of the aircraft for return to service after 100-hour inspection? And I think we already saw that. FAR Part 43.11. I think that was subparents D or E. Oh, they do have the point 11. The checklist is required, and you'll find that requirement in 43.15. Now, the 43 is the maintenance section, and we are maintenance technicians, so luckily there's only like 19 or 20 subparts, so it's not a long FAR part, not compared to 91, which goes on and on and on. But 43, I mean, you could read it in one sitting fairly easily. But we're kind of breaking it down for you here. So, subsection 15 of FAR 43 requires that in each annual or 100-hour inspection, it be conducted by following a checklist. Checklist may be compiled by the technician performing the inspection, or it might be one furnished by the manufacturer of the aircraft. And sometimes it's a combination. You take what's been furnished by the aircraft, and over time, your maintenance facility will expand on it usually, or at least clarify a little bit of what they're looking for. Progressive inspections require a description of the work to be done, and this description must be followed in detail, which is nice. I mean, progressive inspections will put down exactly what they want you to do, almost step by step. So that's good. It looks like this is what we have here. This one here, A, each person performing blah, 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 shall remove and open all necessary inspection plates, access doors, fairings, and cowlings. They shall thoroughly clean the aircraft and aircraft engine. And it's usually the people a little lower on the totem pole that are actually opening up the plates, and someone lower yet is probably thoroughly cleaning the aircraft. Each person performing an annual or 100-hour inspection shall inspect, where applicable, the following components of the fuselage and hull group. And here the little checklist, either put down pass or fail. Fabric and skin for deterioration, distortion, or other evidence of failure, and defective or insecure attachment of fittings. Part 2, pass or fail. Systems and components for improper installation, apparent defects, and unsatisfactory operation. And it's going to go on and on. They may have 50 parts. And to kind of explain a little bit of the progressive, they may separate those into different segments. All right. All these inspections must include at least all the items listed in Appendix D of FAR 43, which I'm sure I'm going to reproduce here. Here's the checklist, so let's see if there's a question on the checklist first. Yes. Under what conditions may any checklist be used as a guide for a 100-hour inspection? Pretty much any one that complies with the requirements of Appendix D of Part 43 is going to be okay. The minimum standards, usually you'll be more detailed beyond the requirements of the Appendix D checklist. All right, so let me give an overview. Like I said, there's 43. It's fairly easy to digest. There's only 17 sections, and we did look at 11. What should the record say? We just looked at what did we look at? 15. Additional performance rules for inspections. And here are the appendixes attached to this. You'll see these more than once. Early on, you may have been tested on what constitutes a major repair or a major alteration, and you were referred to Appendix A for help on that. And how do you record the items for major repairs and major alterations? That's a whole appendix by itself. Appendix C is reserved. D is our checklist. It's the detail of items in a particular aircraft to be included in an annual or 100-hour inspection. Part of this course, you'll also be talking about Appendix D, which is the altimeters or the pedostatic, and F is the transponder, which is our I want to say black box, but it's basically the transmitter that is supposed to go off when when a plane goes down. And of course that's got to be tested, and so does the altimeters. You don't want to think you're at 1,000 feet and you're actually skirting the ground. All right, so we want to look today at Appendix D, the scope and detail of items, and we've been referring to that as the checklist. Where can you find the requirements for inspecting the altimeter and the static system of aircraft that are operated under IFR, Instrument Flight Rules? Well, we just happened to take a glance at that, and it was not Appendix D, but it was Appendix E of Part 43. And normally this goes along with probably question number 13, where can you find the requirements for the transponder? ATC, they'll refer to it, air traffic control. Yeah, that is. Next one. Where can you find the requirements for inspecting the ATC transponder? And it wasn't D, Appendix D, it wasn't Appendix E, it was Appendix F of Part 43. Which beyond that, for this course, I don't believe you're going to have to look at much closer. In instruments, we will take a little closer look at both the pedostatic and the transponder, and certainly if you move into avionics, you'll spend even more time on those items. The FAA does put out an AC that's specific to inspection and repair, and coincidentally it is RAC 43.13-1B. All right, now basically it's your same AC, but this, I don't have this particular publication. I have the publication, but I don't have this cover. I don't believe mine came with this cover. I'm not sure why I have it here. They're actually talking in this one about exceeding 100 hours. And we did take a look at that when we first looked at the requirement under 4311, because it went on, the last sentence or two did say, well, you may exceed the 100 hours, by up to 10 hours for the purposes of getting to the place to conduct the inspection. And then the last sentence did say, if you do exceed the 100 hours, they shall be accounted for in the next 100 hours. All right, the question is, the maximum time a 100-hour inspection may be extended is A, 10 hours, or B, 10 hours with a special flight permit, or 12 hours with a special flight permit. And the answer is just 10 hours. You do not need a special flight permit. That's going to be something we're going to see in annual inspections. But for 100-hour inspections, it's strictly 10 hours. Nothing special needed. An aircraft may be flown beyond the 100-hour inspection requirement to reach a place where the inspection can be accomplished, provided it blank. A, does not exceed 10 flight hours. There you go, right there. B, needs a special flight permit. No. C, does not exceed 15 flight hours. That's a little too long. I mean, 10 flight hours, that's for an aircraft, that's kind of a lengthy use of the aircraft. I mean, you're lucky you get 10 hours, let alone 15. 15 sounds like you're just using it. You don't need 15 hours to fly to some place to have the inspection accomplished. Oral question. Aircraft is required by FAR 91-409 to have a 100-hour inspection. Is that where the requirement was? Yes, it was. All right. I do get my 91s and my 43s mixed up. 4311 was the entry. Yes, in 91.409, which was just labeled inspections, is the requirements for the 100-hour inspections. Is it legal to fly that airplane beyond the inspection requirement? And if so, for how long? Yes, it is legal in order to have the inspection accomplished. And if so, for how long? That's 10 hours. An airplane is flown 4 hours over the 100-hour inspection limit to reach your maintenance facility. How do you account for those 4 hours? I wonder if you can answer this without actually saying 96. Just by saying those next 4 hours should be accounted for in the next 100-hour inspection cycle. See how they answer it. They also avoid saying 96. So if you can avoid giving them a 96 answer, and say it a little longer, saying the 4 hours are included in the next 100 hours. So if you include, so it basically means it's 96 hours after the inspection. You've flown to your inspection location, you got the inspection done, now your 100 hours started 4 hours ago. So you have 96 hours from that point. An initial run-up. After completing the pre-inspection paperwork and maintenance records review, perform an engine run-up to provide a baseline of engine parameters to compare to the next post-inspection run-up indications. So they want you to do a pre-inspection run-up and then compare it to the post-inspection run-up. It might be a little excessive, but I don't see an FAR requirement so far. There may be. A pre-inspection warm-up also warms the engine and provides proper lubrication. Perform an engine run-up to determine whether the engine develops proper static RPM. Certainly if you're doing a 100-hour inspection on the engine, you're going to want to take these tests. You can test the static RPM, the manifold pressure, and if applicable, check pressures and temperatures to make sure they're in the proper operating ranges, which is pretty much an ongoing thing anyway. Check the magnetos, carburetor heat, and propellers for proper operation, and test the generator or alternator for proper output. All right, here's an FAR 4315. That was the additional performance rules. C covers annual and 100-hour inspections. Part 2 and 3 of C is shown. 2. Each person approving a reciprocating engine-powered aircraft for return to service after an annual or 100-hour inspection shall, before that approval, run the aircraft engine or engines to determine satisfactory performance in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. All right, so I guess there is an actual FAR requirement to run the aircraft, a recip anyway. What about 3, which is turbines? Any person, same, before that approval, run the aircraft engine. All right, so I guess you have to run the engines, whether it's a recip under 2 or a turbine under 3. And the oral question is an engine run-up required as part of a 100-hour inspection on a turbine-powered aircraft? Yes, we did see that is a requirement. I guess the short answer is just yes. You don't get too many of those. Take them when you get them. Okay, I like this little float plane here. Looks like a flying boat with some pontoons to keep it from tipping in the water. I guess that's it. All right. Hey, I appreciate you guys joining me. And there's only 2 more. So let's go ahead and maybe I'll crank those off while we're here. 37 minutes. All right. I guess it's time for a break. We'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.